Okay, welcome back. Another day. So part three of this drawing, and where we left off yesterday is that I was like kind of really excited to work on this, and I still feel that way. And actually, I have like a bit more time today. I'm hoping more like 45 minutes to an hour, as opposed to yesterday. I think it was like a little more constrained. And I'm hoping that we get to some fun stuff today, like starting to add a little bit more tone and getting to move on past just the 3D construction. So just as a review, my process of drawing is 6 steps. Like I start with a 2D construction, then I go into a 3D construction, then I block in shadow shapes, and then I finally start adding tone, like actually blocks of shading that's not just line. Excuse me, at that point, which is the step 4, mask the shadow shapes. Then I fix any edges that I want to fix. Step 5, and then 6 is finally putting in the halftones. So I don't think of any medium or any value between light and dark until the very, very end of the drawing. So just kind of something a little bit interesting, but I'm hoping today, like if I could get to edges today, I mean, that would be amazing. And then tomorrow would be day 4, probably like that would constitute that I've been working on this for like 2.5, 3 hours at that point, and then finishing out the halftones, which seems pretty appropriate actually for a drawing of this size and of this style. But unfortunately, I can't just jump into blocking shadows, and even though they're mostly blocked now actually, but I can't just jump into that because I have to actually go backwards a little bit. So it's kind of wild. Like I was looking at this drawing a lot yesterday before, like when I was done with the drawing, and then before leaving the studio. And then I was looking at it today when I got here. And both times, like when I look at this drawing in person, I think that the lay-in is actually really nice. Like, let me kind of show on the, okay, so actually this is like kind of representative of what I'm talking about. So to me, the lay-in is like really nice in person. But when I look at it on camera and I flip it, so actually right now, because this is like the front camera on my phone, this is a flipped version of what I'm seeing. Some of the mistakes actually start to come out and become a little more obvious. So they're not huge mistakes, but there's some issues on the side of the face. The mouth is clearly a bit too small. I think the eyes are not quite, like this one needs to come in further and this part needs to come out further. Just like these like really small adjustments like this that I'm not seeing in person, but I'm seeing when I look at it in like a digital format, when I look at it flipped. And this kind of goes back to something that I was talking about at the end, I think at the end monologue of the previous session on this one, which is this idea of having a way to get fresh eyes on your drawing. And so, the traditional way to do this, and like the way that I still see some artists do it, like, I don't have any names off the top of my head, but that's crazy. I can think of their artwork on Instagram, but I can't think of, his name is also Andrew, I think. He's an artist from Northern Europe, like Nordic artist. But anyway, I'll see if I can find it and post it or something like that. But either way, I've watched videos of his process, of his painting, and he has a mirror with him. And he's actually, it's even kind of exaggerated, I would say. He's checking probably almost every like 2 to 3 minutes. He's taking out the mirror and checking, especially in the construction phase. As he gets deeper into the portrait, it becomes less and less because he's a bit more confident, but nonetheless, he's checking it constantly throughout the beginning, and even into the, like it goes from 2 to 3 minutes to like 5 to 10 minutes, but really, really checking it frequently. And so that was pretty interesting to see. And actually, I must say, like when I record the video, sometimes it can be helpful because I'll look at the digital version of it. Like I'll look at what I'm doing through the phone, and I can kind of see like a shrunk down version, and that kind of gives me like a little bit of a different perspective on it. Also, I hear a lot of people talking about like squinting down and like kind of, squinting your eyes and seeing if it still makes sense. I don't find that particularly helpful. Sometimes it works better for me with like color, and it can work for me for like separating values. But for the purposes of like identifying mistakes in construction or like, small anatomy errors, the flipping in the mirror works way better for me personally. But everybody's different on that. There's also other approaches. Some people also don't struggle with it nearly as much. I think I've identified that as a weakness. I think I have some strengths, obviously, but I think one of my weaknesses is definitely like getting the natural proportions and natural construction is not a strength of mine, and that's part of why I have to excuse me, practice it so frequently, and why after, even like 4 or 5 years of pretty consistent drawing, I'm still doing 100 days right now of like really intentional forced practice to try and get better and better and better and better. So this is where I'm at now. You can only imagine where I was just like 3 or 4 years ago. It's pretty crazy. Actually, at some point, I just start to dig out and do some comparisons, which can actually be really nice and can be motivating for kind of getting better with drawing. But okay, so I think that gives a kind of a nice idea of like what I'm thinking about, how I'm approaching this, and what I want to do today. Like these discussions are kind of very specific to this drawing, but there's also like a few lessons here that maybe you'll find helpful, things that I do that you might find helpful in your own practice. But all right, let's just get into it then. Enough talking. Okay, so if you were paying attention, you notice somehow I changed between the beginning of the video, then the drawing, and then now. And that's because I actually forgot to record the post drawing monologue last time I was drawing. So this is actually the next day, and I'm actually drawing again. Um, the same thing, but I'm gonna do the post. I'm doing the post monologue now, but this is actually gonna be the same as the pre-monologue for the next video. So I'm just gonna, if you're following along super dedicated to the series, you'll see this clip twice. But I imagine that people are kind of skipping around, and I don't know. I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal, so I'm not super worried about it. We'll just reuse this clip twice. So if you're seeing it again, you can skip forward to the actual drawing. But if you're seeing it for the first time, then let's get into it. So I finished this drawing session, and I'm kind of trying to remember the emotions that I had, but I think I was like feeling pretty comfortable with the drawing. There's still like a few drawing mistakes and drawing errors that I can't seem to get rid of. I think they're kind of centering around her left eye, so the eye that would be on the right side. And so I'm going to start today by working on that. Unfortunately, at this point, I've already started to work on the tone. Like I've already started putting in tone. That is like putting in shading, like working outside of just line. And so because I've already started to do that, it becomes harder and harder to change your drawing. Like the more you start to erase, the more things are changed. Like if you have tone everywhere and you erase a section and then you just put line in first to like see if it looks right, it will look a little strange because it needs the tone. So fixing drawing errors this late into the drawing is not ideal, like something you want to try and avoid. Like that's kind of the point of spending so much time on the 2D construction and the 3D construction. So in a perfect world, that phase would already be done. Now, in practice, like most of the time, even artists at very high levels are making adjustments to the drawing throughout the whole process. Like nobody's really getting it 100% right on the block-in stage. It happens, for sure it happens. I think one artist that's really good at that, social media artist, is Stephen Bauman. If you followed him at all, he even has something that he calls like the block-in boot camp, which I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen the free content. It's like a paid content. I've seen the free stuff, and it's really good. Like he's super methodical, like really deliberate, really patient. Um, so I think like he really strives to get it 100% right, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's been times in his life when he has. But I think generally artists, especially as you're getting into painting, if you're doing like alla prima painting and these things, you also have to be comfortable making adjustments at any stage. And ideally, there adjustments you have to make are like on the smaller side, like not redrawing an entire eye, like I might have to do today. I don't know. I'm gonna have to like work it a little bit and see what happens. But it's kind of an inevitability of the process. That as you're adding things, you're kind of making changes, and then you're looking at things again and reevaluating and trying to understand these things. So, I do want to say like it's still good, I think, to strive for having as accurate a 3D construction as you possibly can. And in retrospect, I maybe should have actually spent a little bit more time. I know I spent like 2 days doing it, and I felt like I put the right amount of time. But when I was checking it, I probably should have spent more time checking. Like the drawing was very patient, but I could have done a whole, just sat down for 20 minutes and done like flip the image different ways, like I've been talking about. One thing you can actually do that's kind of nice is you can take a picture of your drawing, take the reference image, and download any kind of like app on your phone that allows for like photo layers, or send it to your computer and bring it into like Photoshop or something, but anything that allows you to do layers. Actually, you could even print it out on like light paper that's like, hold it up to a light. But the idea is you stack your drawing on top of the reference and start to see where the mistakes are. Now, you don't want to get into tracing, unless that's the kind of art you want to do, but the problem with tracing is it's not really transferable. Like you won't be able to draw from life or draw on the fly if you're doing tracing. So that's generally why people kind of stay away from it. So anyway, all that is to say, I kind of have some regrets about not checking the block in and the 3D construction a bit more to make sure everything was in proportion. But also, that being said, here's where we are, and it's good to be flexible and good to be able to, like, for me, it's good to be able to make these adjustments, because especially when you're painting and you're moving paint around and you have a big wide brush, it's very likely that your construction gets kind of shifted and moved and things like that. So it's not unreasonable to think about like redrawing things halfway through, or like moving even kind of like big pieces of the painting. So anyway, that's what I'm going to kind of think about, um, and that's what I'm going to start with. So I guess let's see how it goes. Let's see what happens. I'm excited to draw though, so that's like optimistic, I guess.